When my mother-in-law was 57, she became pregnant with her second child. She had diabetes and high blood pressure. Concerned for her health, I persuaded her to terminate the pregnancy, but I never expected that my husband would later die in a tragic car accident, and despite trying every possible method, my in-laws were never able to conceive again. My in-laws blamed me for ending their family line. So they put paraquat in my water glass. I died a painful death, organ failure, pulmonary fibrosis, and ultimately suffocating to death while fully conscious. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day my mother-in-law announced her pregnancy. I smiled and said, "Mom, when you give birth, I'll take care of you during your postpartum recovery." The expressions on my father-in-law and mother-in-law's faces were somewhat uncomfortable. My husband, Zhao Jian, also looked embarrassed, seeing that no one spoke. My father-in-law cleared his throat and said, "As for whether to keep this child, you two should decide. Your mother and I will listen to you." My mother-in-law quickly added, "Yes, no matter what you decide, we have no objections." That's what they said, but if my in-laws truly didn't want this child, why not just go to the hospital themselves? Why ask for our opinion? Is having a child at an advanced age something to be proud of? Unfortunately, in my previous life, I didn't see through this. I worried about my mother-in-law's health, counting on my fingers as I analyzed the risks of childbirth for her. In the end, she got scared and went to the hospital to terminate the pregnancy. Then Zhao Jian asked me, "Honey, what do you think? How do you feel about this?" What do I think? Naturally, I counted on my fingers for my mother-in-law, just like in a past life. Annie, Renee Liu, Gigi Lai, and Carol Chu. These female celebrities were all in their 40s or 50s when they had children, about the same age as Mom, and wasn't there a woman in her 60s who had twins just a few years ago? My mother-in-law's eyes lit up. "Yes, I've heard about that too. Those two kids are already in elementary school." My father-in-law chimed in, "I've heard about that as well." I smiled and said, "Mom, Dad, let me make my stance clear. I'm definitely supportive of you two having a second child. Once you give birth, I'll take care of you during your postpartum recovery." As soon as these words were spoken, all three were stunned, too. The parents-in-law said they needed to think it over, but the next moment they were already enthusiastically discussing the baby's gender and name. When they returned to the room, Zhao Jian, who had been all smiles, immediately changed his expression, frowning. He looked at me with dissatisfaction. "Are you really going to let them have the baby? How old are they? Even if they have the child, how many years can they raise it? Won't it all fall on us in the end? Do you know how much it costs to raise a child these days? And on top of that, we want to have our own kids someday. The financial pressure will be even greater." I looked at him in surprise and retorted, "Since you don't agree, why didn't you just say that to Mom and Dad earlier?" He stiffened and shot back, "It's not that I disagree. I just think people will gossip if Mom and Dad have another child at their age." I said calmly, "Mom and Dad are in good health. I don't see why they couldn't live another 20 years. They both have pensions and savings, so raising another child wouldn't be much of a burden. If they want to have one, let them. As for outsiders, they're not eating out of their rice jar, so I care what they think." Zhao Jian rolled his eyes unkindly. "It's not as easy as you make it sound. Anyway, if you don't agree, you can tell Mom and Dad yourself. I don't have a problem with it." With that, I ignored him, got into bed, closed my eyes, and pretended to be asleep. Zhao Jian likes to play the good guy, no matter what happens. He never openly objects to anything, he just uses others as pawns, like me. In my previous life, however, he will die in a car accident soon, so there's no need to waste much effort on him. The only risk now lies with the doctor. The mother-in-law is already 57 and has underlying health conditions, so the doctor will definitely inform her of the risks. How can we ensure that she will keep the child even if she knows it will harm her own health? All kinds of thoughts swirled chaotically in my mind until Zhao Jian lay down beside me, and then a thought suddenly popped up. How could I have forgotten? Zhao Jian is such a perfect excuse. Early the next morning, I asked my boss for leave and went to the hospital to get results as quickly as possible. I specifically chose a private hospital and spent a lot of money on a full physical checkup for myself. Taking advantage of the fact that Zhao Jian hadn't finished work yet, I took the examination report and went to see my father-in-law and mother-in-law. "Dad, Mom, your pregnancy reminded me. Zhao Jian and I have been married for over 2 years but still haven't conceived, so today I went to the hospital for a checkup." I spread the report out for them to see. The doctor said my ovaries and uterus are normal, and all the other tests came back fine. I pretended to be upset and said, "The doctor said that since I'm fine, the problem must be with Zhao Jian." In truth, the doctor only said that both partners need to be examined if conception isn't happening. Of course, I was lying to them. My father-in-law and mother-in-law got anxious too, quickly putting on their reading glasses to carefully go over each of my test reports. After hearing this, my father-in-law and mother-in-law found it hard to accept. My mother-in-law asked, "Can it be treated?" I shook my head. "Most likely azoospermia. The doctor said it can't be cured." My mother-in-law looked lost. "I know this condition." Zhao Lihong, who does square Dancing with me, her son has it. They spent over 100,000 and still couldn't fix it. I heard the couple is getting a divorce. I looked at my mother-in-law and sighed. Now I'm really glad you're pregnant. Otherwise, the Zhao family line would have ended. At the word ended, both my father-in-law and mother-in-law's expressions turned serious. My father-in-law held my mother-in-law's hand and said with unwavering determination, "We must have this child." My mother-in-law stroked her belly and nodded repeatedly. I quickly assured them, "Don't worry, Mom and Dad, once the baby is born, I'll raise my little brother as if he were my own son." Then I looked at them pleadingly. "Please don't tell Zhao Jian about his illness. It would be a huge blow to any man, and I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to handle it." My parents-in-law readily agreed, for when my parents-in-law went for the prenatal checkup, the doctor indeed advised them to terminate the pregnancy, but my in-laws were adamant. They threw a tantrum, accusing the doctor of being cold-hearted and lacking medical ethics, and even threatened to expose him to the press. The doctor was utterly exasperated. In the end, the head of the obstetrics and gynecology department and even the hospital director all got involved. The hospital tried hard to reason with them, showing them case studies and papers on elderly pregnant women, along with the latest statistics from both domestic and international sources. Many such pregnancies had resulted in children with intellectual disabilities, mothers becoming paralyzed, or even the deaths of both mother and child, but her parents-in-law only saw the surviving cases and firmly believed that they would be fine. There was no choice. In the end, the hospital had to admit the mother-in-law, this extremely elderly pregnant woman. The parents-in-law returned as smug as if they had won a battle. Zhao Jian frowned. "Mom, the hospital already told you that you're too old. Having this child comes with risks. Why are you so stubborn?" The mother-in-law was displeased. "What risks could there be? Those hospitals just like to scare people. Besides, when I asked for your opinion before, you didn't say no either." Zhao Jian was at a loss for words, then put on a worried expression. "It's not that I disagree. I'm just worried about you." The mother-in-law dismissed it. "There's nothing wrong with my health. Put your mind at ease." As if coaxing a child, she reassured him, "Don't worry, my son. Even if I have a younger brother or sister for you, I'll still love you the most. You're the firstborn of our family. No one can ever take your place." The father-in-law said pointedly, "We're having this child for your sake too. When he grows up, he'll take care of you as well." Zhao Jian, unaware of his azoospermia, turned red with anger upon hearing this. "I don't need him to take care of me. Look at how old you are. This is just embarrassing to even mention. I don't agree with this. Go get an abortion right away. Otherwise, don't expect me to support you when you're old." The mother-in-law looked at him in disbelief. "He's your own little brother. How can you be so heartless?" The eunuch slammed the table in anger and said, "If you're so capable, go have one yourself. Otherwise, we're having this child, no matter what." My heart skipped a beat. 5. Fortunately, Zhao Jian didn't suspect a thing. Instead, he even made it clear to his parents that if he and his wife had a child of their own, they would have to abort theirs immediately that night. He said to me, "Starting today, we're not using protection anymore. I refuse to believe that my parents can get pregnant at their age. But we can't. Just wait. I'll get you pregnant within a month." I felt a wave of relief. So he still didn't know that the other woman was already pregnant. In my previous life, I only found out Zhao Jian was cheating on me when he got into a car accident while on a road trip with his mistress. The police said the mistress was pregnant, and a DNA test confirmed the child was Zhao Jian's. Before I could even grieve, my enraged in-law sent me straight to hell with a glass of water laced with paraquat. After that, not only did I have to endure physical agony, but I also had to muster the strength to report the crime and find a lawyer, all while fighting for justice. My parents died young, and I had no contact with the rest of my relatives. I even had to arrange my own funeral affairs. Right up until I closed my eyes for the last time, my in-laws were tearfully begging for my forgiveness to get a lighter sentence, while simultaneously fighting me in court to take all the car accident compensation. Thankfully, heaven had mercy and granted me a second chance. This time, I will watch their entire family die together, one by one. Zhao Jian urged me, "Honey, go take a shower. I'll wait for you." I smiled and walked into the bathroom. After I finished showering, I made up an excuse to brush him off. "I'm on my period." He looked disappointed. I glanced at him and said, "What's the rush? Have you forgotten what the doctor said? Mom's body is completely unsuitable for pregnancy. Once various problems start catching up with her, she won't need you to persuade her. She won't be able to keep it up herself. No matter how important a child is, can it be more important than her own well-being?" Zhao Jian's eyes lit up. "I've looked it up on Baidu too. For someone like Mom, the chance of miscarriage is really high." After saying that, he happily started playing on His phone, seeing his smug expression, I knew he was chatting with his mistress. After that day, Zhao Jian no longer opposed his parents having another child. Instead, he became unusually attentive to his mother's blood sugar and blood pressure levels. Much to his parents' relief, the atmosphere at home returned to its previous calm. Not until I opened the express box containing the Chow Tai Fook gold bangle did I realize that this home would soon turn into hell 6, just like in the previous life. Zhao Jian's expression changed the moment he saw the open package. He said, "Honey, this is the anniversary gift I bought for you. I was planning to surprise you with it. Can you just pretend you didn't see it? I'll return this and get you a new gift." I smiled sweetly and said, "Sure, I'm really looking forward to it." That evening, before he went to take a shower, he left his phone charging on the nightstand. I opened WeChat and saw his chat history with the other woman. "I bought you the gold bracelet you wanted. Don't forget what you promised me. Don't worry. I've got everything ready." In the photo, a bed was covered with tight leather clothes, a thong, handcuffs, and a whip. Zhao Jian also replied with a drooling emoji. "Just wait. You won't be able to get out of bed tomorrow." What followed was all dirty talk between them. I forced myself to scroll up despite the disgust and saw them discussing how to transfer assets, use their marital relationship to burden me with debt, and swindle away the house my parents left me. Seeing all this, I wasn't even the least bit surprised. I just felt that all scumbags in this world are the same. Sure enough, I have no problem watching him go to his doom. I'm not the one who should feel guilty. The next day, I smiled and said goodbye to Zhao Jian, who told me he was going on a business trip for a week. Zhao Jian left in the morning, and the police called at noon. "Yes, this is Qiao Qing. Zhao Jian is my husband." Hearing Zhao Jian's name, my in-laws looked over curiously, and I kindly turned on the speakerphone. The roads were slippery from the rain. A dump truck tipped over while turning left, crushing the car your husband was driving. He had already gone into shock by the time they got him out. The medical staff at the hospital did everything they could, but they couldn't save him. My mother-in-law, who already had high blood pressure, rolled her eyes and fell straight backward. My father-in-law rushed to support her, but she pulled him down, and he hit the ground hard. With a crack, I clearly heard the sound of bones breaking, and what a wonderful sound. 7. Both my father-in-law and mother-in-law were taken away by the emergency services. My mother-in-law was so shocked that her blood pressure spiked to 180, and the doctor insisted she be hospitalized. As soon as she woke up, she anxiously asked me, "Is it true? Is Zhao Jian really gone?" I nodded. My mother-in-law immediately broke down, wailing on the hospital bed, "My son," but after just 2 cries, she clutched her head and called for the doctor, saying, "My head hurts so much, I feel like it's going to explode." The doctor said these were symptoms of an acute hypertensive episode, and while it wasn't untreatable, many medications couldn't be used because she was pregnant. Moreover, even if the condition eased, as the pregnancy progressed, there was a high chance it would recur, and by then, many complications could threaten the lives of both the baby and the mother. Between the lines, everything implied that the mother-in-law should terminate the pregnancy, perhaps because she was feeling so unwell. A trace of hesitation appeared on the mother-in-law's face. How could that be allowed? Pretending to be utterly heartbroken, I said to my mother-in-law through tears, "Mom, I know you're suffering inside because Zhao Jian is gone, but you must take care of yourself. You still have a baby in your belly." I reminded her, "If something happens to you, our family line will end." As expected, the mother-in-law grew resolute again. She eyed the doctor warily and threatened, "If anything happens to my child, I'll jump off the roof of your hospital." The doctor looked helpless, and the way he looked at me was extremely complicated. I silently apologized to the doctor in my heart, deciding that I would apologize to him properly once everything was over. As for the father-in-law, he had been underneath when the mother-in-law fell. Her weight of over 130 kg crashed down on him, breaking one of his arms and one of his legs. Those weren't major issues, they could be treated, but during the examination, a CT scan revealed a growth in the father-in-law's lung. The doctor said it was highly likely malignant and already at an advanced stage. The father-in-law had often coughed, but he had been a heavy smoker for decades, so no one had suspected anything like this in my previous life. He was still alive and well until the time of my death. Now that it has been discovered early, though, who can say for sure that knowing ahead of time is a good thing? 8. After a series of further tests, my father-in-law was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer. I almost burst out laughing in front of the doctor. I had to pinch myself hard to muster a sorrowful expression and beg him, "Doctor, please save my father. Isn't surgery an option? Get my father the best specialist. Switch all his medications to imported ones." Gritting my teeth, I spoke with firm resolve. "My husband died in a car accident. The insurance payout will be huge. I don't want a single cent of it. All of it will go to saving my father." My father-in-law looked at me with relief and said, "For our old Zhao family to have a daughter-in-law like you, our ancestors' graves must be smoking with blessing." Then, while busy consulting the doctor about treatment options, he didn't notice that behind him, his mother-in-law's expression had long since darkened, and her gaze toward him had become complicated. After the doctor left, I wiped the non-existent tears from the corners of my eyes and said, "Mom, Dad, I need to go. Take care of Zhao Jian's funeral arrangements. What I just said to the doctor was sincere. I don't want the compensation money. Consider it my way of honoring Zhao Jian's filial duty." The parents-in-law exchanged a glance, their eyes devoid of any grief over their own son's death, filled only with mutual wariness. I walked out of the hospital room and waited for 3 seconds. A fierce argument broke out. Behind me, the corners of my mouth lifted, and my steps felt light. 9. The car accident that killed Zhao Jian happened in a neighboring city. Zhao Jian had already been taken to the mortuary at the funeral home. The police asked if I wanted to see him one last time, but I refused. Just cremate him directly. The police had already identified the woman who died in the crash with Zhao Jian, so they weren't surprised by my attitude. They simply went through the motions as a matter of procedure. I signed the papers, picked up Zhao Jian's belongings, and watched as his body was sent into the cremation chamber. In the end, all that was left was a handful of ash. I bought the cheapest urn for Zhao Jian. As I was leaving, I noticed the police speaking with a couple. The man's eyes were red, and the woman was quietly sobbing. I realized they must be the other woman's parents. They must have known who I was, because upon seeing me, a flicker of unease crossed their faces, clearly, compared to their daughter, they still had some sense of shame. I nodded at them calmly, my expression steady. They seemed surprised by my demeanor, exchanged a few hushed words, and then walked over to me. The man said awkwardly, "We know about what happened between my daughter and your partner. She's already learned her lesson, but wrong is still wrong. It's my fault as her father for not raising her right. I apologize to you on her behalf." With that, he began to bow to me, but I reached out and stopped him. I said, "If anyone was going to cheat, it would be Zhao Jian. Even if it weren't your daughter, it would have been someone else, but I also needed them to know exactly what kind of person their daughter is." I pulled out her phone from among her belongings, found the WeChat chat history, and handed it to them. After reading it, both of their faces turned terribly grim, yet they still begged me not to tell anyone that their daughter had been the other woman. I agreed. As for the child in the other woman's belly, none of us brought it up. It no longer mattered. On the way back from the funeral home, I finally received the private investigator's dossier. In the photos, my father-in-law was with a woman in her 40s. They didn't look particularly intimate, but there was also a little boy about 5 or 6 years old when the three of them appeared together at restaurants, amusement parks, and shopping malls. If not for the father-in-law's advanced age, they would have looked like a close happy family of 3. I carefully compared the little boy's features with my father-in-law's, and sure enough, there was a fair resemblance. I smiled. It seemed even fate was on my side. 10. When I returned, my father-in-law and mother-in-law were still in the hospital. I went to see my father-in-law first. He had a splint on his arm and a cast on his leg, looking rather pitiful. I offered him some words of concern, then wheeled him to the obstetrics ward to meet up with my mother-in-law. My father-in-law had a long face, and my mother-in-law let out a cold snort. Clearly, neither of them was pleased. I pretended not to understand and brought up Zhao Jian's funeral arrangements, saying, "I've temporarily kept his ashes at home. How should we hold the funeral? After all, he was their biological son of 30 years. Although the two were at odds with each other, they set aside their differences for the moment and began discussing the matter. After discussing for a long time, they finally decided to notify only a few close relatives and hold a simple ceremony, but insisted on buying a good cemetery plot. I didn't offer an opinion, but said with some difficulty, "Mom and Dad, since you're family, I'll be straightforward. Forget about a good cemetery plot. Even an ordinary one costs over 100,000. Neither Zhao Jian nor I earn much. After paying the monthly mortgage, car loan, and living expenses, there's hardly anything left right now. The total in both of our bank accounts is just over 60,000. The two looked at me suspiciously, clearly not believing it. I directly opened the banking app. After they carefully confirmed that the account held only 61,340, both of their expressions darkened. Actually, that's not all. To transfer assets, Zhao Jian also bought 300,000 yuan worth of funds that can be redeemed at any time, but his parents don't know about this money. I brought up the car accident compensation again. The insurance company is already processing it, at the earliest in a month, at the latest in 3, the compensation should come through, over 600,000 yuan in total. I wanted to shed a couple of tears, but couldn't, so I put on a grieving expression and said, "Zhao Jian and I were husband and wife. I wanted to give him a grand farewell, but the living matter more. Mom will need money for childbirth when the time comes, and Dad's illness requires funds too. So I thought it'd be better to use the money on more important things." Hearing this, his parents exchanged a glance, each convinced they were the more important one. In the end, they decided on the cheapest option for Zhao Jian, a flower bed burial costing 18,000 yuan. I immediately offered to cover the cost and even spoke up for him. Zhao Jian has always been filial. I believe if he were still here, he would understand Mom and Dad. After the discussion, I walked my father-in-law back to his hospital room. On the way, I accidentally left my bag on my mother-in-law's bed. 11. After leaving my father-in-law's hospital room, I saw over a dozen missed calls on my phone, all from my mother-in-law. I leisurely bought myself a cup of coffee, scrolled through my phone for a while, and then strolled back to my mother-in-law's room. Mom, my phone was on silent. Sorry about that. Why did you call me so many times? Is something urgent going on? My mother-in-law, clutching a stack of photos in her hand, asked in a trembling voice, are all these real or not real about? What? Curious, I took the photos from her, and my expression changed the moment I saw what was in them. The mother-in-law pressed sternly, tell me right now, what exactly is going on? After repeated urging from my mother-in-law, I finally said with reluctance, Zhao Jian and I had heard some rumors before. We were afraid of wrongly accusing Dad, so we thought we'd investigate first to find out what was really going on. Later, when there was still no news and Zhao Jian had his accident, I completely forgot about it. It was only today, when I went out and ran into the delivery courier, that I just tossed it into my bag. Upon hearing this, the mother-in-law flew into a rage and wanted to confront her husband. Zhao Deqiang, you bastard, how dare you mess around behind my back, and even father a bastard child. I'll kill him. I quickly stopped my mother-in-law. Mom, please don't rush into this. I just don't think Dad is that kind of person. He's usually so good to you, ever. Since you got pregnant with my little brother, Dad has been bringing you tea and water, washing your feet, giving you massages. He's never once complained. Besides, Dad was standing quite far from that woman, and they didn't seem very close, and that child doesn't really look like Dad either. There's probably more to it. My mother-in-law exploded at that. That is his child. Everyone in the Zhao family has that kind of single eyelid and those eyebrows. That child looks exactly like Zhao Deqiang. The more the mother-in-law spoke, the angrier she became. Her blood pressure spiked again, and she nearly fainted from dizziness. I quickly steadied her and said, Mom, you really must take care of yourself. You still have a baby in your belly. The mother-in-law was stunned. After a moment, she stroked her belly and said, this child has nearly worn me out. I can't eat. I can't sleep. My blood pressure won't go down. And now my blood sugar is rising. I can barely breathe when I talk. The doctor says it's too risky for me to continue the pregnancy and advises me to terminate it, but Zhao Deqiang has always refused. Now I finally understand. He's hoping I'll die along with the baby, so he can leave everything to that woman and her bastard child. As she spoke, she started laughing, but it was a laugh uglier than crying. 12 that day. My mother-in-law asked me to keep what happened a secret and not tell anyone, and I agreed. Mom, as a fellow woman, I'm definitely on your side. My mother-in-law acted as if nothing had happened, except for the occasional look of utter venom she shot at my father-in-law. Soon, it was time for Zhao Jian's funeral. Relatives and friends were all deeply saddened, unaware that my mother-in-law was pregnant with a second child. They whispered among themselves, Zhao Jian didn't leave any children. How will the old couple ever get by? But old Zhao could still sire another child now. Right, it's just that his wife is too old to get pregnant. Isn't she? Someone in the know said quietly. Let me tell you, you're behind on the news. Old Zhao doesn't just have Zhao Jian as his only child. How do you know that? Do tell. I heard it from someone else, so I can't guarantee it's true. People outside were discussing heatedly, and no one noticed that at the other end of the green belt, the mother-in-law had heard everything from start to finish. When the funeral crowd dispersed and we were about to leave, my father-in-law suddenly said he had left his phone at the gravesite and asked us to wait for him. I looked at his legs and said, Dad, where did you drop it? Let me go get it for you. My father-in-law refused. It's in the men's restroom. You can't go in. With that, he drove off on his electric wheelchair. After my father-in-law left, my mother-in-law followed him with me. And then we saw the woman from the photo being taken by my father-in-law to Zhao Jian's grave. They were too far away for me to hear what the two were saying, but I could clearly see the intimate attitude the father-in-law showed toward that woman and her child. I glanced at my mother-in-law. Her face showed no emotion at all. It was even quite calm, but her eyes had long since turned bloodshot with anger, and the veins at her temples were throbbing violently. Seeing that she wasn't as composed as she appeared, I felt relieved. 13. After Zhao Jian's funeral, my father-in-law and mother-in-law had both stabilized and were temporarily discharged from the hospital to recover at home. My father-in-law was taking imported targeted therapy drugs, which weren't covered by insurance, costing over 30,000 yuan a month. When relatives found out, they secretly advised my mother-in-law, old Zhao's illness is hard to treat, don't end up losing both the money and him. The mother-in-law said, wiping away tears, he is my husband. If it means giving him one more day to live, I wouldn't hesitate to pay not just 30,000, but even 300,000. When these words reached the father-in-law, he took her hand and said with emotion, this is when I truly know who has been the best to me. The elderly couple had never been so close or affectionate with each other before. Pregnant and heavy with child, the mother-in-law made soup for the old man every day, then brought it to his room and fed it to him spoonful by spoonful. However, the father-in-law's health showed no improvement. His cough grew worse, keeping him up all night long. One night, just before bed, he suddenly coughed up blood. Startled, he asked, am I about to die? Call a car for me, take me to, before she could finish her sentence, her voice cut off. Through the crack in the door, I saw my mother-in-law stuffing a rag into my father-in-law's mouth. I pretended nothing had happened and tiptoed back to my room, lying on the bed. I thought of my past life. That night, I woke up in the middle of the night, suddenly unable to breathe. I struggled to get up and went to seek help from my in-laws, but the couple, who had always been kind to me, suddenly turned hostile. If it weren't for you, my son would almost be here. You're the reason our family has no descendants. You should die too. They took my phone, tied me up, and locked me in the room from the outside. I tried everything I could, slamming my head against the window with all my strength until the glass shattered, which woke up the others in the neighborhood, and only then did I manage to escape, thinking that my father-in-law was now suffering the same pain as me. A surge of satisfaction rose in my heart. 14. The next morning, I was awakened by my mother-in-law's crying. How could you be so heartless, father? How are we supposed to go on living without you? The crying also drew the neighbors, and my mother-in-law sobbed until she fainted. The police and the ambulance arrived almost at the same time. After the doctor examined her, he whispered a few words to the police officer, then went to check on the grandmother. Shortly after, the grandmother woke up and immediately hugged me, crying. The grandfather's body was taken away. After the autopsy, the forensic examiner determined poisoning, paraquat. The police came to ask me questions, wanting to know if my grandfather or grandmother had shown any unusual behavior recently. I shook my head. That night, when I came out to get some water, I vaguely heard them talking. Nothing unusual, but a while back, my father wasn't feeling well. He was really suffering, sometimes in so much pain he couldn't sleep all night. My mother, pregnant at the time, still had to take care of him. He mentioned a few times that he felt like a burden to her. This was confirmed by relatives and neighbors. In the end, the police concluded that the grandfather, believing his illness would never be cured and not wanting to drain the family's savings, compounded by the torment of his pain, impulsively ended his own life within just 1 month, after losing her son and then her husband. The grandmother was devastated. She could no longer get out of bed and fainted several times from crying during the grandfather's funeral. Relatives tried to comfort her again and again, but she wouldn't listen and insisted on seeing through every ritual. After the funeral, when everyone else had left, all the pain and reluctance vanished from the grandmother's face, leaving only emptiness. She sat blankly by the grandfather's grave for a long time, and only rose to leave when her body could no longer hold out. But before she could even leave the cemetery, she ran into that woman again. The woman's eyes were red, and she was holding a bouquet of chrysanthemums, clearly there to pay respects to the grandfather. The grandmother's face turned ashen. Just as she was about to speak, she heard the woman say, choking back tears, I've come to see Dad off on his final journey. 15. The woman said that when her father-in-law went to the countryside back in the day, he fell for a local girl. After spending some time together, the two held a simple wedding feast and consummated their marriage. The following year, she was born. Later, as policies changed, her father-in-law returned to the city. Before leaving, he promised to come back for mother and daughter once he got settled, but he never returned or made any further contact. In those days, that kind of story was all too common. The woman's mother knew she had been abandoned, but unlike those who chased after a man to the city to demand answers, she said, did I stop living just because he's gone? I'm not about to throw myself at anyone. So, with support from her own family, she raised her daughter alone. After her daughter started elementary school, she remarried through a family introduction. The woman said she had moved there due to a job transfer and only reached out to her father-in-law out of curiosity about him, but she didn't want to affect her father-in-law's current family, so they only met occasionally, sometimes with her son. To prove her words, the woman showed her mother-in-law the marriage certificate between her father-in-law and her own mother, a family photo of the two holding a child, and her father-in-law's diary, which bore his handwriting. What the woman said was true, but the mother-in-law refused to accept it, muttering, that's impossible, it must be fake, it's definitely a lie. The woman did not argue. She simply kowtowed 3 times before her father-in-law's grave, placed the flowers down, and left alone. I pressed my lips together and said to her, Mom, let's go home. My mother-in-law nodded blankly, but then clutched her belly and cried out in pain. 16. My mother-in-law lost the baby. The doctor said her body was already unsuitable for pregnancy, and coupled with the successive severe blows she had suffered, she miscarried. The doctor, aware of our family's situation, hinted that this was actually the best possible outcome. After waking up, my mother-in-law did not throw a fit or wail. Instead, she appeared very calm, but after returning home from the hospital, her mother-in-law kept having nightmares, often waking up crying out her father-in-law and Zhao Jian's names. During the day, she was listless and often in a daze. Sometimes when watering the flowers, she wouldn't realize until the watering can was empty and water had spilled all over the floor. She would come out of her room, then suddenly forget what she was going to do. Standing blankly in the living room, relatives came to visit her and quietly urged me, you should keep an eye on your mother. She's been through so much. I Completely understood, but I still had my job, had to go to work, and even go on business trips. I thanked them profusely. On the day I left for my business trip, I made breakfast for my mother-in-law before leaving. Before I left, I saw the insulin in the fridge and asked her, "Mom, have you taken your shot?" She thought for a moment and said, "I don't think so." With that, she took out the syringe and gave herself the injection. After breakfast, I went back to my room and dragged out my suitcase, telling her, "Mom, I'll be away for 3 days. Make sure you eat properly at home. Don't just grab anything. Call me if anything comes up." My mother-in-law nodded and watched me leave. As the door closed, I heard her mutter to herself, "Did I take my insulin today?" I silently curled the corners of my mouth upward, then left. 17 in the evening, I called my mother-in-law, but no one answered. I then called the neighbor across the hall and said worriedly, "Aunt Lou, my mom isn't answering my calls. I'm worried something might have happened. Could you please go check on her? The secret to my front door is 202122. Aunt Lou readily agreed and even praised me, saying, "You're a wonderful daughter-in-law, no two ways about it, truly filial." After a few seconds, Aunt Lou said over the phone, "I'm inside." I listened closely to the sounds coming from the phone. Slap, that was the sound of Aunt Lou turning on the light. Then came Aunt Lou's scream. Panicking, she asked me over the phone, "Chow Ching, your mother-in-law has collapsed on the floor. She isn't dead, is she?" Then came the sound of her shouting for help. The voice on the other end of the phone was all chaotic. When the phone was picked up again, it was Aunt Lou's husband speaking. "Chow Ching, your mother-in-law is gone. We don't know what happened either. We've called the police anyway. You need to come back quickly." After hanging up the phone, I explained the situation to my boss and rushed back that same night. It was the same police officer who had been there when my father-in-law passed away. The look in his eyes carried a straightforward scrutiny. He suspected me. The police officer asked me over and over again about my mother-in-law's condition before I left home that day. He checked my high-speed train ticket purchase records, my ride-hailing records, and even called my boss to confirm that I had indeed been on a business trip that day. Finally, the officer said, "You can't stay at your home for now. We still have some investigations to conduct." I nodded to show my understanding. "I'll cooperate." 18. The cause of my mother-in-law's death came out 3 days later. She had died from low blood sugar. She has diabetes, which is likely why she's been absent-minded lately. She injected too much insulin. Upon hearing this outcome, everyone was filled with a sense of sorrow, but they quickly accepted the answer. Her son is dead, her husband is dead, and the baby in her womb is uncertain. Anyone would go mad. If she could give birth to her second child, at least she'd still have something to live for. If she really gives birth, her hardships are just beginning. Have you considered how old she is? She might not even raise the child for long, and she could end up burdening Chow Ching. That's true. I arranged the third funeral in the family. Looking at the 3 tombstones standing side by side, I burst into inconsolable sobs. Everyone thought I was grieving for my departed family, but only I knew this was the release that came after exacting a great revenge. After that, I quit my job, sold my in-laws' house, as well as the new home Zhaojian and I had never moved into, and took the money to another city. Sitting on the high-speed train, the scenery outside the window was left behind by the rapidly moving car. Finally, I too was able to cast off all that had come before and begin a new life. Story 2. My little brother brought home a poisonous pufferfish. Grandma cooked it overnight as a midnight snack. I secretly threw it away and warned everyone it was toxic, but nobody believed me. Grandma cursed me as a greedy glutton for hogging all the meat. My parents beat me senseless for denying them their share of meat. My brother wailed that I'd stolen and eaten all the fish, demanding I replace it. Covered in wounds, they threw me into the river, forcing me to catch another fish. The river water was bone-chillingly cold, far beyond what I could endure. They ignored my pleas, threatening to let me die if I couldn't find fish. Eventually, I drowned and sank to the riverbed. To my shock, they showed no remorse. They made a fortune selling my remains. I couldn't accept my fate. Perhaps heaven took pity and granted me rebirth. Opening my eyes, I shook my head at the pufferfish on the dining table. Such fine meat should naturally go to my younger brother and elders. As I opened my eyes to see my brother's smiling face, it dawned on me, I'd been reborn. The firewood crackled warmly in the hearth. I wasn't drowning, nor was I being beaten. My little brother was holding a pufferfish with a grin, handing it to Grandma. Grandma's face lit up with delight as she took it. Though she didn't recognize the fish, she showered my brother with praise. Our Finn is truly blessed. He's the lucky star of this household. These days, which family can afford meat, let alone such precious fish? Granny's cooking the fish right now. A special treat for Finn, my brother, and I got completely different treatment. Squatting by the stove to feed it firewood, just glancing up earned me a vicious kick from Grandma. I stumbled and nearly fell into the fire pit. Quit gawking, you little brat. Tend the fire. Poisonous fish, my foot. You're just hogging it all. Before my rebirth, I'd warned Grandma that the fish was poisonous and inedible, but just like in my past life, she wouldn't believe a word of it. Last time around, terrified my whole family would be poisoned, I dumped the entire plate into the cesspit. I thought saving their lives would earn me some kindness, but it cost me mine instead. After Grandma scolded me a couple times, I kept my mouth shut and focused on tending the fire. My 8-year-old brother mimicked Grandma and gave me a kick too. Such a greedy girl. No one will ever want to marry you. I glared at him with a cold smirk. My stare must have frightened him, because he immediately hid behind Grandma and went silent. Grandma quickly cleaned the fish, placing the inedible guts into a small bowl. These are treasures. Feed them to the chickens for more eggs to nourish my precious grandson. I watched helplessly as she handled everything without washing her hands, those toxin-coated fingers touching everything in sight. The savory aroma of fish soon filled the air. I used to be the one serving meals and bringing dishes to the table, but this time I just stood there holding my bowl, unwilling to touch the ladle. As I hesitated, Grandma smacked the back of my head. She caught me eyeing the fish and shooed me away like I was some thief trying to steal a bite. Useless brat, quit staring. I knew you were up to no good. A money-draining nuisance like you has no business eating meat. I instinctively took a step back, afraid of being hit again. My little brother hovered by the big pot, practically drooling with anticipation as he kept fidgeting impatiently. Granny, I want fish. Hurry up and serve it. Too busy to scold me further. Grandma snatched the bowl from my hands and turned to pamper her precious grandson. There, be a good boy now. Dinner's almost ready. She went to scoop the fish stew, then handed the bowl to her younger brother to carry to the table. After he left, Grandma noticed bits of meat and gravy clinging to the spoon. Not wanting to waste anything, she licked it clean until the spoon gleamed. My heart raced as I swallowed hard, wondering if those greasy scraps she just swallowed might poison her. She saw me swallowing hard and mistook it for hunger, growing even more convinced the fish wasn't poisonous before shooting me a venomous glare. Hearing my parents return just then, I turned to fetch bowls and chopsticks before she could start scolding. I wouldn't touch anything Grandma's hands had been near, wouldn't even take a single bite of this meal. Bowls and chopsticks were laid out on the table with the fish placed squarely in the center. Eat up then, can't stop those with a death wish. My parents sat at the table with gleaming eyes. Dad poked at the fish meat. What kind of fish is this? Where'd it come from? Grandma patted my little brother's head proudly. My eldest grandson caught this from the river. Nobody else could have landed a fish these days. Mom swallowed hard and chimed in with praise. Fish are nearly extinct nowadays. Who knew my boy had such talent? The whole family was laughing joyfully as the younger brother bobbed his head and reached out with chopsticks for the fish. But Dad tapped his hand. You can't start eating before the elders, let Grandma have the first bite. The boy sulked and slammed his chopsticks down. Grandma's laughter deepened her wrinkles, happier than during New Year's celebrations. Finn is such a good boy. Our Finn will go far. Grandma can't wait for the day she'll bask in your success. Then she pointed at me and scolded. Not like this greedy little brat, scheming to hog everything for herself. The whole family turned to stare at me, and I quickly lowered my head. Grandma didn't mention my warning about the poison fish, and nobody else brought it up. Dad took Grandma's words as gospel, glaring at me before joining in the scolding. How dare you try to hog it all? We've raised you for nothing. Don't even think about touching this fish today. Seeing Dad's big hand about to smack my head, I quickly put down my chopsticks and pushed the fish toward Grandma, saying, No, such good fish should naturally go to my little brother and elders first. Only then did Dad snort coldly and lower his hand, telling Grandma, Mom, you should try some first. My brother impatiently tapped his bowl with chopsticks. Hurry up, I want fish, I want fish. Granny's face flushed with laughter as she reached out with her chopsticks. I kept my head down, counting the minutes. It had been over 10 since Granny ate those meat scraps. The poison should be taking effect soon, just as I'd anticipated. Granny's hand trembled violently as she lifted her chopsticks, her face turning deathly pale. Shakily clutching her chest, she gasped, Son, my boy, why do I feel so awful? I knew it. The poison was taking effect. Our teacher had warned us about this, saying there might be pufferfish in the river near my home and telling us never to eat them if we saw any. But a teacher's good intentions can't save those hellbent on destruction. They didn't believe me and threw me into the river instead. My father dropped his chopsticks in panic. But before he could speak, Grandma collapsed face first onto the table. Watching my parents frantically rush to Grandma's side, I felt a dark satisfaction wash over me. My little brother froze in terror, dropping his chopsticks mid-bite before collapsing to the floor in tears. I quietly stood up and took several steps backward. In their panic, the group overturned the table, the entire plate of fugu fish tumbling onto the floor, completely ruined. Staring at the wasted delicacy scattered across the floor, I couldn't help but think what a shame nobody got to taste it. Who knows if we'll find more in the river now? Grandma lay convulsing on the ground, gasping for air. It was terrifying to watch. Dad trembled as he scooped her up and bolted outside, with me right behind. In the yard, we found our only old hen lying motionless on the ground. Approaching, I saw traces of spilled entrails. Grandma moved fast. She'd already found company for her final journey. This hen's eggs always went to my younger brother first, with any extras given to father out of Concern for mother and grandmother. Father would occasionally share some with them. As for me, I never knew what an egg tasted like. Now the only one my heart aches for is this innocent hen. Mom dragged my still sobbing little brother as they chased after Dad out the door. I hurried after them. The village hospital was too far, so Dad took Grandma straight to the nearest clinic. The doctor lifted Grandma's eyelids, checked her pulse, then shook his head. It's hopeless. Could be acute myocardial infarction, but the symptoms resemble poisoning. Did the old lady take any medication? I've never seen death by poisoning before, but hearing the doctor pronounce it hopeless made my heart race. She's gone. She's really gone. The doctor's words sent shockwaves through the room. A drug-related death in the village is a grave matter. One misstep and you'll become the talk of the town. Sure enough, whispers broke out among the crowd immediately. Poisoned? Did they drink pesticide or something? What? A disgraceful way to go. Something shady must have been going on in that household. They seemed like such filial children. Why would the old lady take poison? My parents grew uneasy hearing this gossip. They cared deeply about their reputation. Besides, we'd never even bought rat poison at home. How could this be poisoning too? My father's eyes turned red as he wept, desperately trying to explain. How could it be poisoning? We don't even have any toxic substances at home, not even pesticides. Where would we get poison? My mother died of a heart attack. She had such a hard life. My mother started crying too. She left us so suddenly. We'd just finished cooking dinner, hadn't even picked up our chopsticks yet, went through all that trouble to get a fish for a nice meal, and she passed without taking a single bite. Scared us so bad we overturned the whole table. When folks heard we'd been eating fish that night, they figured the old lady couldn't have had any reason to despair. Everyone just accepted it was a heart attack and didn't ask further questions. After much persuasion from the doctor, they finally carried my grandmother back home. The scraps on the floor had been completely devoured by either cats or dogs. Not a single crumb remained. I'd actually planned to gather them up, wash them, and let them have another meal, but nobody had time for that now. Neighbors came over to help set up the morning hall, filling the house with sudden activity. Happy to have nothing to do, I found a quiet corner to sit and watch the show. Even now, I haven't seen Grandma's expression, but I imagine it wouldn't be pleasant. Not that I care to look. My mother picked up the dead hen while wiping away her tears. The neighboring aunties tried comforting her in her grief. She hugged the hen and wept even more bitterly. This hen was raised by my mother-in-law, who would have thought it'd follow her in death. Such a perceptive creature. Back in the village, we'd often hear similar stories. When elders passed, their pets would sometimes follow. Now, Mother believes this hen's just like those loyal dogs and cats. The aunties didn't know what else to say, so they just humored her. That's right, your mother-in-law was such a kind soul. Even the chickens followed her. How touching. That chicken's got spirit. My mother wiped her tears and kept sighing heavily. What should we do? No more eggs from now on. But such a clever chicken. Maybe eating it will make Finn smarter. Absolutely. Your Finn is bound to go far someday, if it's that special. Why don't we all share the blessing? Let's serve it at dinner tonight. Saves us some money too. The moment Mom heard it could save money, she agreed right away. The toxins in this chicken won't kill anyone at the banquet, but they'll still cause unpleasant symptoms if we end up paying compensation. My tuition money could be gone. The thought terrifies me. Without education, my life would be ruined. So I immediately went over to stop her and whispered my concerns. Mom, this chicken is so special. If little brother eats it, he'll surely go far. Why don't you hide it for him? I thought she'd do it for his sake, but out of nowhere, she slapped me across the face. My cheek burned, yet nobody batted an eye, and not a single soul stepped in to intervene. Then Mom flew into a rage, jabbing her finger at my face as she screamed, "Your grandmother warned me you'd hog it all." I didn't believe her then, but here you are, still scheming after she's gone. Aren't you afraid her ghost will come haunting, planning to sneak it for yourself, aren't you? Forget it. A worthless wretch like you, always drooling after meat. Get lost and get back to work. Her shove sent me stumbling, scattering every thought from my mind. Couldn't help mocking myself. They wouldn't listen in my past life when things got that bad. Why would they now? So be it. If the tuition money's gone, I heard orphans can get their tuition covered by the village. In that case, let's all just die together to avoid raising suspicion. I found some work to do and tried my best to stay away from that chicken. After bustling around for a while, Dad couldn't shake off what the doctor said about it looking like poisoning. He pulled me and my brother aside to question us. Finn, Dia, I need you both to tell me everything you saw Grandma eat. Don't leave out a single thing. My brother clutched a red bean bun in his hand, shaking his head blankly. Grandma didn't eat anything. I kept my head down and echoed, she didn't eat anything at all. It couldn't have been poison. I couldn't mention the pufferfish was poisonous before, and now it's even worse. If I spilled the truth now, my dad would beat me to death on the spot. After questioning us several more times and hearing matching stories from my brother and me, Dad had no choice but to believe us. Luckily, Grandma licked the spoon secretly, so Finn didn't notice. Silver lining. We were too poor to afford a hospital death certificate anyway. We worked non-stop all day Until dusk, when everyone started preparing the feast, though called a feast, there wasn't much worth eating. Dad scraped together our family's meager savings, yet could only afford vegetarian dishes, the sole meat being chickens contributed by different households. Our chicken got stewed in the same pot with others, and we couldn't bear to waste the broth, using it to enhance flavors in every dish at the banquet. I only picked at dishes that hadn't touched the chicken soup, watching people devour all the chicken at every table. I wondered what the evening would bring. After everyone left and my parents stopped crying, they had me stand guard in the yard while taking my little brother inside to count the red envelope money. Faintly, I heard Mother say, "Mom didn't die for nothing. We've made enough to give Finn a good education and comfortable life." My younger brother threw a tantrum. "I don't want to go to school. I won't. No education means no future. Your mom and I are counting on you." Then Dad shifted his focus to me. "That useless girl Dia. I say we stop her schooling altogether. Village chiefly should know better. What's the point educating a girl? She'd be more useful tending crops at home." Mother chimed in. "Exactly. Once she's old enough, marrying her off for our precious son's bride price will be her only real worth." The night wind cut to the bone as I knelt expressionless before the coffin, burning spirit money sheet by sheet, feeling no warmth from the brazier, just. Then, my little brother suddenly cried out, "Mom, my stomach hurts. It really hurts." Hearing this, I quickened my pace of burning the paper offerings. "It's happening. It's finally happening." Sure enough, moments later my parents started complaining of stomachaches too and rushed my little brother to the village clinic. As they were leaving, Dad even came back specifically to kick me. "Watch your grandmother properly. Don't you dare wander off. If I don't see you when I get back, I'll beat you to death." He never asked if I had stomach pains too, just hurried off after saying his piece. No way I'm staying put. Gotta check out the commotion. Sneaking outside the clinic, I found every light blazing. All the chicken thieves had gathered there. The toxin must have diluted. Probably not lethal anymore, just causing vomiting and diarrhea like regular food poisoning. Once everyone compared notes with the doctor, the truth became obvious. "What rotten stuff did your family serve, bringing spoiled food to a banquet? Are you trying to kill our entire village? The whole village is vomiting and having diarrhea. Adults might tough it out, but what about the little children? You're absolutely paying these medical bills. We came in good faith to help with the celebration, and now we've caught illnesses instead." There was no way my parents could accept this. The medical costs for so many people would be astronomical, completely beyond their means. My mother fought back through her own discomfort. "What's broken here? Can't you see our whole family came to? Finn's stomachache is unbearable. Let him see the doctor first." My brother was bawling his eyes out, snot and tears everywhere, throwing a tantrum in Mom's arms. Mom was already suffering from stomach pain, and this commotion made her break out in sweat, yet she still couldn't bear to let go of her precious son, who said, "You get priority. Pay up the medical bills first. With all that wedding cash you collected today, it should more than cover the damages, or just return the money." "That's right. Everyone here ate at your place today. The food poisoning definitely came from your house." Everyone was completely worn out, glaring at my parents with growing hostility. Some even got angry when my parents stayed silent and started shoving them. In the scuffle, my mother fell. My brother's front tooth got knocked out when it hit the ground, blood gushing instantly as he wailed in agony. The scene descended into utter chaos. My mother's sobs, my brother's wails, the curses from bystanders, my father's furious shouts, and the clinic doctor's futile attempts to mediate. Only I stood outside laughing merrily, squatting by the wall with a curious stray cat that stopped to watch the commotion fight on. Then, the commotion lasted half the night until the villagers finally settled down after extracting medical compensation from our household. I could feel the brazier's warmth now, but my knees ached from kneeling. Inside the house, my mother's intermittent sobbing still carried through. "What sin has our family committed? We barely scraped together those wedding gifts, and now not only are they all gone, but we're even deeper in debt. What the hell went bad in our house? Why did everyone at the banquet get food poisoning? Did Mom get poisoned from eating that stuff?" "Shut your damn mouth. Mom died of a heart attack, not poisoning. Keep spouting nonsense and I'll beat you senseless." Dad smashed his bowl in rage, followed immediately by the sound of Mom collapsing. A loud crash. I didn't need to look to know that sound. It was my father kicking my mother to the ground. It was always like this. Whenever my father was upset, he'd take it out on my mother with punches and kicks, and my mother seemed resigned to it, enduring the abuse meekly, even comforting him afterward. But every time my father fell asleep, she'd drag me outside and take her anger out on me with some excuse. Sure enough, within moments, my father's snores echoed through the house. Before the door creaked open, she clutched a thick wooden club, her eyes swollen and red, face twisted with fury. My entire body trembled instinctively as memories flooded back. The last time before being thrown into the river in my past life, that was the very same club my father had used to beat me until I could barely stand. "You wretched girl, admit it. Was it you who tampered with the food? Poisoned it just because you couldn't have it all to yourself? I'll beat you to death. Why couldn't it Have been you who died. Her voice was utterly devoid of emotion, as if I were some unforgivable criminal, as though only my death could quell her rage. My breath hitched as I scrambled to hide behind the coffin. Mom, don't hit me yet. If you hurt me, there'll be no one left to keep vigil. She wouldn't listen to reason, charging at me with blows raining down. Grandma never protected me in life, and death changed nothing. That coffin might as well be empty. The club struck my body with a sickening thud, the pain so intense I nearly blacked out. Years of malnutrition left me too weak to outrun her, dodge her strikes, or even put up a fight. She went berserk, beating me like she wanted to kill me to vent her rage. In my past life, I'd probably grit my teeth silently throughout, knowing words were useless and would only make her hit harder, but not this time. I refused to die, remembering Dad was already asleep. I immediately let out a blood-curdling scream. My mom was shouting loudly, hurling all sorts of nasty insults I could only pretend not to hear, praying this beating would be over soon. My screams worked. They woke my dad, who bellowed from inside the room, "Shut the hell up, you wanna die or what?" My mother jumped in fright, immediately dropping the stick and scurrying back inside. Having narrowly escaped disaster, I collapsed onto the ground, wondering which stray cat or dog had eaten that poison fish. A single chicken wouldn't kill a person, but a whole fish could be fatal for cats or dogs. After the whole village poisoning incident, no one came to help anymore, for Grandma's coffin was only kept for one day before being hastily buried. My younger brother pointed at me and laughed. "Got beaten again, you little brat." Mom, why didn't you just finish her off? I can't fathom how an 8-year-old could turn out so rotten. All I know is every last one deserves what's coming to them. Not a single one's innocent. My mother patted his head with pride, her face glowing with maternal affection she'd never shown me. "She better not die. Who's gonna foot your wedding bills if she kicks the bucket? Then I'll just wait till I get married to beat her to death." Finn is so clever. Ever since I was little, the entire Wang family brainwashed me into believing sisters exist solely to serve their brothers. Before starting school, I never realized how wrong this was. It wasn't until I went to school and met other girls that I realized what kind of family I was born into. The other girls were always dressed to the nines, with endless new outfits to wear. They'd get picked up after school by cool motorcycles, sometimes even cars. They'd tasted foods I'd never heard of and owned things I couldn't even imagine. They always stood up for me, but no one could really change anything. Gradually, I realized the importance of education and became determined to leave this household behind. In my past life, I acted on my own misguided sense of familial duty, pouring out that bowl of pufferfish ended up costing me my life. Now I just want to live well for myself. I don't know if these dark thoughts are right or wrong, but instinct drives me to act on them. I believe if I don't do this, I'll surely die again. Providence gave me a second life, not to keep living like a coward. The next day, my parents went to work as usual, leaving just my younger brother and me at home. I took a walk around and sure enough, found a dead puppy in the haystack behind the house. The pup was only 2 or 3 months old, its lips purple, much like how the doctor described Grandma's death. I knew it, that pufferfish must have been what it ate, but I couldn't just bring it back. Instead, I went home and found my younger brother. My little brother was playing in the yard when I walked over and patted his shoulder. "Finn, want to play hide and seek? You hide, I'll seek." Just as expected from a playful kid, he agreed immediately. After pretending to search for a while, I came home to find him already waiting. He dangled the dog by its legs, grinning from ear to ear. Spotting my return, he hastily hid the carcass behind his back. "Quit staring, brat. Not a single bite for you. Mom says all the good stuff's mine. You don't deserve any." Just like always, I stared at the lifeless body for what felt like ages. When evening came, Mom and Dad returned home. Seeing the dog Finn brought back, they showered him with praise. "Finn's got all the luck. Caught fish just days ago, and now brings home dog meat. Our Finn's destined for greatness. The lucky star of this family. Dress that dog for dinner. We're having a feast tonight. I'll fetch some liquor." Without a word, my mother went to prepare the remains. I boiled water and helped pour the scalding liquid over the dog's body. She hummed cheerfully while working, creating such a festive atmosphere you'd never guess we were handling a death. The dog was butchered into chunks of meat and tossed into the pot, soon filling the air with savory aromas. At the dinner table, I pretended not to notice the dog meat, finishing only a bowl of plain congee before setting down my chopsticks. Mom wouldn't touch a single piece, patting herself on the back for saving all the meat for Dad and my younger brother. My brother took one small bite and immediately spat it out, complaining that dog meat tasted awful. He'd much rather have fish that made Dad stay. He happily gnawed on those dog bones to his heart's content. I felt that pang of regret again. In the dead of night, I lay wide awake staring at the pitch-black ceiling. A blood-curdling scream suddenly pierced the air, jolting me upright. It was my mother's voice, rushing to her doorway. I saw her kneeling by the bed in tears, shaking my father's shoulders. "Talon, open your eyes and look at me. What am I supposed to do without you? Dear God, what sin have I committed? Where did I go wrong? Talon, wake up." My father lay on the bed with a ghastly pallor, his lips turning purple, a truly terrifying sight. Staring at his ashen face, I couldn't help but think of Grandma. Perhaps She'd looked just like this in death. Death struck the Wang family within 3 days. The news spread like wildfire through the village and beyond. On top of that mass poisoning incident, some claimed our family had been deliberately poisoned. Most believed our family's feng shui had gone wrong, afraid of bad luck. Hardly anyone came to help after father's death. Only a few elder relatives showed up. His funeral was kept simple, and he was buried the same day. My mother sank into depression, doing nothing all day but sitting in the yard from dawn till dusk. The next day, the village doctor suddenly showed up at our door, saying he needed to inspect our food supplies to prevent another incident. My mother followed him to the kitchen like a wooden puppet. The elderly doctor carried several small bags and collected samples of our rice and water while wearing gloves, even taking a bit from the dog meat stew. He advised us to avoid eating anything from home until he returned from running tests in the city, but my mother was distracted and completely missed his instructions. The moment the doctor left, my little brother started pestering our mom. Mom, I want fish. I really want fish. I didn't even get a bite of that fish the other day. Stupid grandma, why'd she have to die right then? So annoying. My mom sighed. But Finn, we can't afford fish right now. No, I want fish. Sell her to buy fish. My brother pointed at me accusingly. In his eyes, I might as well have been less than human. Then suddenly, I burst into laughter. I want fish too, I said, true to form. My mother started screaming. You wretched girl, you'll never taste fish in this lifetime. Keep dreaming, useless burden. You're the reason our family's cursed. Why couldn't it have been you who died instead? I kept my head down in silence. Let her rant. It wouldn't last much longer anyway. My little brother started fussing and shouting. I want to go catch fish in the river. There's still fish there. I want to eat fish. Mom's eyes lit up. She'd been craving fish ever since missing out last time, and when her precious son made a request, she never said no. Without hesitation, she took both of us to the riverbank. She clung to my brother affectionately, refusing to let go. Where did Finn catch fish last time? Let's try our luck there again. My brother pointed ahead. Right there. Mom and that useless girl. Both of you get in and catch some for me. Mom immediately scowled at me. Get your ass in there and fish. If you come back empty-handed, I'll sell you off. Of course I had to go in, and I'd better pray hard to catch at least one more. The three of us waded into the river together. Half an hour later, drawing from memories of my past drowning vision, I spotted and caught a pufferfish. My little brother cheered excitedly. Got it, Mom, we're having fish for dinner. She rushed over in a hurry, telling her little brother to stop shouting lest others discover this fishing spot and they'd lose their future catches. Just like always, she kept murmuring about how her brother was the Wang family's lucky charm. She sighed that it was a shame father wasn't around anymore to share in their future blessings. I remained silent, smiling as I trailed behind watching this heartwarming display of maternal devotion and filial piety. Mom's smiling face vanished the moment I stepped through the door. A small crowd had gathered outside our house, standing over what remained of the dog's fur. That's when I learned the dog was named Teddy, an expensive purebred our neighbors had purchased. They'd been searching for him until the village doctor accused our family of cooking dog meat. They immediately demanded 800 yuan in compensation, leaving my mother weeping helplessly as she couldn't scrape together the money. When those thugs realized they wouldn't get payment, they barged into our courtyard and started smashing our windows and doors. Shards of glass covered the floor, chairs and tables wobbled brokenly. Our home lay in ruins, shattered beyond recognition. Mom abandoned the half-cleaned fish, sitting in the yard crying inconsolably. My little brother kept begging for fish. Since no one else would cook it, I decided to do it myself. I carefully cleaned the fish, keeping even the poisonous parts, boiled everything in one pot, and served it. Mom had no appetite but kept piling fish onto my brother's plate. Good boy, Finn. Eat up. You're our family's only hope now. Your sister's worthless. Your father's gone. Your grandma's gone too. You're the only man left in this family. Make me proud, son. Grow up and buy your mother a big house. I'll make your sister help you more. Everything she earns will be yours. Her brother wouldn't listen to her nagging and punched her chest. Shut the hell up. Keep yapping and I'll knock you out. Mom didn't see anything wrong with it at all. Smiling, she ruffled his hair and kept praising him. Finn's so strong. He'll go far someday. The boy frowned as he gnawed on the fish. Before long, he devoured the entire fish. Right after finishing his meal, his whole body suddenly convulsed before collapsing violently onto the floor. He didn't even get to say a few last words like Grandma did. His death came swiftly. My mother froze in shock, chopsticks in hand, sitting completely still in her chair. It was me who finally snapped her out of it, asking, Mom, what's wrong with little brother? She snapped back to reality with a blood-curdling scream. Finn, she spent the entire night cradling her brother's lifeless body, weeping inconsolably. She couldn't comprehend why her family members kept dying one after another. What had gone so terribly wrong? I figured even if I told her the truth now, she probably wouldn't believe me. That's her precious son we're talking about. How could he possibly harm his own family? I quietly cleared the table and retreated to my room to sleep. Though the wailing outside shook the heavens, I slept like a baby. At dawn, Mother had already cried Herself weak, sitting on the ground clutching my brother's lifeless body. Neighbors came to gawk at the commotion, and one look at the boy's pallid face told them everything. All 3 generations had died with identical ghastly expressions, as if fearing contagion. The crowd scrambled outside, whispering and pointing fingers at my mother. What evil have they brought upon themselves? Dying one after another, now even the child's gone. Food poisoning doesn't add up. Why would only one person get sick each time? Does this family take turns eating alone? This place feels cursed. We'd better leave before whatever's haunting here gets us too. With that, everyone scattered like roaches. Not a single soul stayed to help. My mother frantically tucked my brother into bed, rocking him like a woman possessed. I've been eating and drinking to my heart's content. What a rare treat to live so carefree. Another day passed before the old doctor returned from town. He rushed to my house clutching a forensic report in his hand. Meanwhile, my mother was bustling about the kitchen, reheating that pot of dog meat again and again. Finn loves meat, but he won't eat dog meat. Problem is, dog's all we've got left. Finn, you'll have to make do. I hid outside the door and greeted the old doctor when I saw him. Grandpa Jean. The old doctor gave me a candy before rushing into the kitchen, where he grew frantic at the sight of freshly served dog meat, rushed over to snatch it away. Didn't I tell you not to eat anything from this household? Why are you reheating this? This very thing poisoned your husband and mother-in-law. My mother was about to grab it back but froze upon hearing this. Dear Jean, what are you talking about? We only ate this dog after my mother-in-law passed away. Seeing her disbelief, the old doctor produced the lab report and placed it right before my mother's eyes. Take a good look. This dog contains tetrodotoxin. A single dog carries enough poison to kill over 20 people. This was verified at the testing facility. There's no mistake. My mother froze for a long moment. Though illiterate, she understood the authority of testing institutions. After a prolonged silence, she finally asked, "What's a pufferfish?" Pufferfish are peculiar creatures. They puff up like balloons when out of water. Our rivers teeming with pufferfish, but every soul for miles knows their flesh is poison. Not even famine drives folks to catch them. That dog must have snatched a pufferfish by the riverbank, poisoned itself to death. What rotten luck. Of all dogs, you had to pick this one to eat. Damn shame. My mother nearly fainted when she heard the doctor's words, almost collapsing on the spot. My grandmother married into our family from another region. After Grandpa's early passing, she was left alone raising father. Perhaps Grandpa never got the chance to warn her about pufferfish being poisonous, so she remained completely unaware. When I told her pufferfish were toxic, she simply thought I was lying. My mother pieced together all the clues one by one, and suddenly everything clicked. It all started with that fish my little brother caught. If only he hadn't caught that fish, or if someone at home had recognized it, none of this would have happened. I watched coldly, waiting for her moment of breakdown. Diar Zhang frowned. What's that awful smell in your house? Something's gone bad. You mustn't eat spoiled food. The stench was unmistakably coming from my little brother's body. As the weather grew warmer these days, my mother kept wrapping layer after layer of quilts around his cold corpse. How could it not reek? Suddenly, my mother collapsed onto the floor as if drained of all strength, tears and mucus streaming down her face. How could this happen? That fish and dog were brought home by Finn. How could he possibly harm his own family? Finn, oh Finn, how could you betray your family? Weren't you supposed to be our good luck charm? How could you kill your own father and grandmother? Sobs uncontrollably, wailing bitterly, she scrambled to her feet and rushed into her brother's bedroom. The moment the door opened, a wave of putrid stench hit me so hard I nearly vomited. My mother completely lost it. She stormed over, flung all the bedding onto the floor, and slapped my brother across the face. Finn, how could you do this to our family? You've ruined our bloodline. And you're just lying here sleeping. Get up. I tugged at the doctor's sleeve. Grandpa Zhang, my brother ate pufferfish and has been dead for 2 days. While Mom was hysterical over my brother, I explained everything to Diar Zhang. Diar Zhang opened his mouth but couldn't find words to say. Suddenly Mom turned her anger toward me, pointing and shouting accusations. It's all your fault, you wretched girl. What good was your schooling if you couldn't even recognize poisonous pufferfish? You killed your father. You're the one who should be dead. I hid behind Diar Zhang, clutching tightly at the hem of his coat. How could I not recognize it? In my past life I spoke up, and it led to my brutal death. This outcome is exactly what they deserved. Diar Zhang couldn't bear hearing me being scolded any longer and frowned while stopping my mother. Sheila, how could you berate your own daughter like this? Your family matters have nothing to do with your eldest girl. It was your son who brought those things home. Why blame everything on your firstborn? His words only made things worse. My mother completely lost it, her eyes bloodshot as she lunged forward to hit him. Though Diar Zhang was getting on in years, he was still no match for my mother's temper. He grabbed my mother's wrist firmly. Sheila, snap out of it. No one wanted this tragedy to happen to your family, but what's done is done. You should bury Finn first. It was only then that mother seemed to realize her son was truly gone, all strength drained from her body as she collapsed onto the ground. I tugged at Diar Zhang's sleeve and pleaded with him. Grandpa Zhang, could I stay at your place tonight? I'm scared. All right, you go with Grandpa Zhang. I'm genuinely terrified. My mother looks completely unhinged right now. Without someone watching, she might actually beat me to death. Everything will have to wait till dawn. After stewing all night with no outlet, she might truly lose it. I had a restless night, haunted by the sound of my family's weeping. In the morning, Dr. Zhang took me to the village chief's house. The chief was a kind man. Without his help, I'd never have gotten an education. After hearing my story, the chief immediately gathered people and headed to my home. The Wang household now lay in complete ruin, shattered windows, a woman laughing hysterically in the courtyard, the stench wafting from inside. Every detail painted a heartbreaking scene. The villagers the chief had brought helped bury my younger brother and forcibly took my mother to the hospital as they loaded her into the vehicle. My mother kept screaming Finn's name, still unable to accept that all this tragedy stemmed from her son. The village chief invited me to stay at his place for a while, but I declined. Staying home alone doesn't scare me. The most terrifying things in this world are already gone. After learning the truth, the villagers stopped treating me like a plague carrier. Some kind-hearted aunties even brought me food, worried I might starve. 2 days later, the village chief came to tell me my mother had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and, given our family's circumstances, had been committed to a psychiatric hospital. From now on, I'd have to make my own way in the world. Never in both my lifetimes had I felt such overwhelming relief. The village chief helped me apply for tuition waivers and government assistance. That's how I survived on financial aid and stayed in school. I studied relentlessly, knowing all along that education was the only way out for mountain kids like me to make something of themselves. Years later, I got into my dream university through scholarships and working multiple jobs. I finally graduated and landed a decent position. After years of relentless effort, I finally possessed everything I'd ever wanted. That day, I received a call from the psychiatric hospital. They said my mother had nearly recovered and kept asking for me, wondering if I could visit. Hanging up, I put on my finest clothes, adorned myself with the most exquisite jewelry, and drove my best car to see the mother I hadn't laid eyes on in over a decade. I almost didn't recognize her. When we met, gone was the woman I remembered, her hair now streaked with gray, face lined with wrinkles, her whole being drained of vitality. She couldn't even lift that heavy wooden stick anymore, yet she recognized me instantly. I asked the nurse if we could have some privacy, and soon the room held just the two of us. She wept, saying she missed me and wanted me to take her away. I smiled at her across the table. Mom, you're still not well enough to leave. Dad and little brother's Memorial Day is coming soon. What a shame I'm a girl and can't go back to pay respects. Our family line ends with us. Mom, it's all little brother's fault. Do you think he actually knew that pufferfish was poisonous? And what are the odds he'd bring that dog home too? Seeing Mom cry even harder, I continued. Truth is, I knew the pufferfish was toxic. I told Grandma, but she thought I just wanted it all for myself. I also knew that dog could kill someone if it ate the pufferfish, but Dad loves it. I couldn't bear to spoil his fun. Little brother loves fish, so I catch them for him. See how good I am to you all. I said quite a lot, though haltingly. I even talked about things from past lives. I wasn't sure she'd believe me, but voicing it out somehow eased the weight in my chest. Mother's expression shifted from confusion to shock, then from shock to fury, only when the woman across the table had another hysterical episode, prompting nurses to rush in with sedatives. Did I casually rise to my feet? This might be the last time I see her. Once she's gone, I'll make sure her family reunites properly. Just days after leaving the psychiatric hospital, I got another call. They told me my mother had smashed her head against the wall, blood sprayed everywhere, and she was gone instantly. Hanging up, I felt nothing, not a ripple. Paid someone to bury her back home, never went to see the grave. May their family rest peacefully together underground. Life's still long. I'll make sure to live this lifetime well. Story 2. As the scorching apocalypse loomed, my mom and I were hiding in a summer resort, chilling with popsicles, when suddenly my dad, the son-in-law who moved into our home, showed up unannounced with his parents and his mistress. They even brought an 8-year-old boy, whom my grandmother proudly declared as their true heir, dismissing me as a financial loss. In a fit of rage, my mom confronted him but was doused in gasoline by my grandmother. My grandfather then ignited it, proclaiming that once my mom was gone, everything would belong to my dad. Tears streaming, I rushed to save my mom, only to be drenched in gasoline myself by my grandmother, who scorned me as a thankless wretch. Better off dead with my mom. Pain, intense pain. I screamed, waking from this nightmare, drenched in sweat. Nora, my mom, burst through the door, also sweating profusely. We had shared the same dreadful dream. This isn't just a nightmare, Mom. We've been reborn. I clenched my fists. This time, it's our turn to fight back. They think they can wipe us out, over my dead body. Nora, my mom, embraced me, crying uncontrollably, feeling so guilty for choosing such a father for me. All I could do was comfort her, reminding her that without him, I wouldn't exist. So, in a way, we still gained something. The immediate plan was to prepare. This time, we would hide and watch them destroy each other. With half a month till the recurrence of the extreme heat from our past life, we would head to the summer resort in 10 days. Currently, we were still at home. I needed to attend to my company, my mom to her dance classes, and my dad was always out, busy with his mistress and their son. As we had found out, I hired a private detective to investigate my dad and contacted an agent to sell the villa in the summer resort at a discount, denying my dad a chance to stay there. After all, it was my mom's property before marriage and solely in her name. My dad wouldn't even know it was sold. Then, I directly bought a fruit orchard that was up for sale. The location of the orchard was excellent, right at the mountaintop near the summer resort. Besides a 3-story building that covered over 200 square meters, owned by the orchard keeper, there were no other houses nearby. In our past life, my mom and I had visited the orchard the day after we arrived at the resort. My mom had then expressed her wish to retire in such a place someday, planting various fruit trees and flowers, owning pets, and watching the sunset from a rocking chair. I had responded, "That sounds wonderful. Once the company is stable, I'll join you here." The orchard owner, overhearing this, offered to sell it to me at a bargain and insisted I keep his contact, ending in 18 and 35s, which I remembered very clearly. Despite the high temperatures being half a month away, my mom flew there early to start constructing a perimeter wall, as in apocalyptic times. People like my dad posed the greatest threat. Meanwhile, I rushed to settle my company's affairs. Once done, I grabbed my suitcase and left, taking the property deeds with me and also distributing all the food and drinks from our fridge to others, confident that my dad wouldn't notice. My mom hadn't been home for 3 days, and he hadn't even realized. Upon reaching the orchard, I found my mom supervising the workers, wearing a safety helmet. The 3-meter-high wall was already taking shape, topped with iron nails, glass shards, and even electrified to deter intruders. "Mom, you're moving fast." I was surprised. It had only been 3 days, and I thought it would take at least 5 to 10. "I've hired 3 construction crews to work shifts," she explained. "The tiles on the walls of the house have all been knocked down and replaced with insulation material. The windows are upgraded to bulletproof glass, and we've applied a heat-insulating film on both sides to prevent explosions from high temperatures. I've also ordered solar panels and batteries." My mom has hardly slept these past few days, her eyes red. When I urged her to go to bed, her eyes misted up. "Nora, every time I close my eyes, I see that nightmare and just can't sleep. Let me keep busy. It helps me feel better." I felt so heartbroken and hugged her tightly. "Don't worry, they'll get what they deserve." The detective sent me the investigation report. It turns out my dad has been keeping his mistress in our own neighborhood, renting the villa under her name. He visits her every morning and only leaves at night. What's more outrageous is that my grandparents are living there too, happily leeching off my mom and still not satisfied. The detective even sent an audio clip where they were discussing how to kill my mom to inherit her properties. I was furious, thinking, this is how you want to play it. Just wait for the consequences. With the heat wave 18 days away, the construction crew has finished the wine cellar in the house, equipped with a temperature control system. As long as there's electricity, no matter how hot it gets outside, the cellar will stay around 20 degrees Celsius. My mom said it's for survival. In case it gets so hot that the air conditioning fails, we can take refuge there. This reminded me to order 5 air conditioners immediately, just in case. 10 days before the heat wave, my dad called my mom to ask where she had gone, wondering why there was no food left in the fridge. I checked the surveillance footage I had installed before leaving. My dad was calling from in front of the fridge while Grandma was rummaging through the cabinets, cursing about the lack of even a bag of rice. "I don't know, go buy some yourself, I'm busy." My mom hung up abruptly, looking upset and sounding harsh, her eyes red. My dad was stunned, as my mom had never spoken to him so harshly before. The next second, he started cursing at her, threatening her life and even calling me. I didn't bother with him and just hung up and blocked his number, letting him rant. Unexpectedly, he called our accountant. The accountant called me right away, saying my dad asked her to transfer $100,000, but she didn't dare. Block him too. He's already getting $50,000 a month for expenses and now he wants an extra $100,000. Ridiculous. If it wasn't for the $50,000 he already gets, he wouldn't get a penny from me. My mom's phone rang again, obviously him trying to ask her for money after being blocked by the accountant. "What? Can't afford rice now? Coming to me for money?" My mom's tone was sharp, but my dad became flustered. "Wife, is there some misunderstanding?" My mom scoffed coldly. "You're keeping a mistress and even have an 8-year-old son. Did you think you could hide it forever? Let me tell you, Bob, not only will I divorce you but I'll take back every penny you spend on your mistress." Seeing my mom so agitated, I quickly rubbed her back and hung up the phone for her. "There's no need to get so upset. They'll definitely get their comeuppance," she said. "Of course they will. If heaven won't take them, I will." "Nora, why do you think they want to kill us?" "It's because your dad signed a prenuptial agreement, and we've had our assets notarized before getting married. All these years, your dad hasn't worked at all. It's all been on me. If we divorced, he'd have nothing." My mom couldn't hold back her emotions, and tears started to fall. "I miss my dad so much." He told me Bob was no good and to watch out for him. Why didn't I listen, Mom? Grandpa is watching over us from heaven. Isn't that why we were reborn? I hugged my mom, my eyes also red with tears. I missed Grandpa too, the stern yet warm-hearted old man who always told me to behave like a proper girl, to be seen and not heard, to follow the rules, yet he would gladly get down on the floor and let me ride on his back like a horse. Yes, Grandpa must be watching over us, so we need to live well for him to see. My mom finally calmed down and went back to supervising the work. I turned on the surveillance and saw that my dad and the others had gathered in the living room for a secret meeting, discussing how to deal with my mom and me. Their plan, as it turned out, was to kill us before the divorce could happen. My grandmother looked fierce and sinister. Let me do it. I'm old anyway. It's worth it. In our previous life, it was my grandmother who made the move. I shivered at the thought. Truly wicked people are worse than animals. Just like in our past life, they decided to let Grandma take action. With Grandpa assisting, they planned to douse us in gasoline and set us on fire, ensuring neither my mom nor I could escape. But this time, they couldn't find us. My dad tried to find out through his company colleagues where I was on a business trip, but even they didn't know. My mom was even more tight-lipped. Her friends didn't even know she was planning to divorce. After getting nowhere with his inquiries, my dad's face grew darker, his lips twitching as if he was a ghoul crawled out from hell. Nora, come see how this cold storage looks. My mom called me, and I quickly turned off the surveillance and ran over. The cold storage was converted from an existing cellar. Now, with the cooling system on, it was chillingly cold and barely habitable, but the space was huge, about 75 square meters, definitely sufficient. Awesome. I gave a thumbs up. With the cold storage finished, the whole house was nearly done being renovated. I left the finishing touches to my mom and went to stock up. Just before leaving, my mom handed me a list of supplies. I glanced at it on my way. 50 bags of rice, 100 boxes of noodles, 100 pounds each of various flours like glutinous rice flour, as well as soybean oil, corn oil, peanut oil, and various kinds of canned goods that could last 20 years without spoiling. All were included. I was dazzled by the list. No wonder Mom thought of everything. I wouldn't have been so thorough. But I had made preparations too. I downloaded a doomsday supply list online, which included these staples, everyday items, as well as essential antibiotics, vitamins, and various vegetable seeds. I had my mom set up a fish pond on the first floor to breed robust species like tilapia, so we would have fresh fish to eat in case of enduring heat. I chose not to stock up in the county town to avoid drawing attention. It took me over 4 hours to get to the province. First, I rented a 20-ton truck and headed straight to the wholesale market. It's a good thing my grandfather insisted I gain grassroots experience when he was alive, starting with logistics, allowing me to obtain a B2 driving license in my senior year of college. Otherwise, things would be too troublesome now, especially since in these end times, trusting people is risky, and hiring a driver is like adding a ticking time bomb. My mom sent a message saying the construction crew was already evacuating. I replied, all right. I expect to be home by tomorrow afternoon. Let them withdraw slowly. We're not in a hurry and still have plenty of time. The ones in a hurry were my dad and his group. My dad was frantically looking for traces of my mom and me, having asked all our relatives and friends to no avail. In desperation, he even started going through my address book and calling my former classmates. That turned out to be quite amusing. I posted on my social circle, my parents are divorcing. I chose my mom, so if my dad has harassed you, please block him. If you want to reconcile, block yourself. If you're here for the drama, grab some popcorn and continue following. Finally, the owner of the wholesale market had time to attend to me. I had integrated a list of supplies for the end times, which my mom and I downloaded online, and handed it to the owner, saying, please load up according to this list. Are you opening a store? The owner asked. Seeing that I was a new face, I smiled and nodded. Yes, a general store in the countryside. We need a bit of everything. Got it. The owner went to call someone to load the goods, while I went to the largest local pharmaceutical supplier. Luckily, I already ran a company and had some connections. I had arranged for the necessary documents a few days prior, so I only needed to hand over the list. The manager serving me didn't even ask why I needed so many medicines. He just asked where they needed to be delivered. Of course, it was to the truck. At around 7 p.m., my mom came to find me. The workers had just finished loading the last bag of charcoal onto the truck, handed me the bill, collected the money, and left. We, of course, were not in a rush to return home. With the apocalypse approaching, it was naturally time to treat ourselves to a lavish meal at a super 5-star hotel, go shopping, then return to the hotel for a good night's sleep. We planned to drive home early the next morning. My mom came looking for me with this plan in mind. We had to enjoy ourselves to the fullest at the hotel. My mom ordered Australian lobster. I Ordered king crab, my mom ordered Buddha jumps over the wall. I went for truffle delicacies, my mom chose ivory clams. I picked wild yellow croaker, the theme was luxury and extravagance. As my mom said, we had to spend freely to make this rebirth worthwhile. At the mall, we were even more extravagant. My mom walked into a store and said, "Not these, but everything else we'll take." Wait, mom, calm down, we need to stay calm. I hugged her, trying to temper her excitement. What if the high temperatures only lasted a few months? How would we manage afterwards? Fortunately, my mom took my advice and halved our purchases. Laden with bags, we returned to the hotel and lay on the soft beds, feeling a sense of relief that we wouldn't be the ones to perish this time. 9 days before the apocalypse, I backed the truck into the yard as close to the door as possible and started unloading. The electric cart my mom had insisted on buying proved very useful. She handled the ground operations while I unloaded from the truck, speeding up the process significantly. The cargo was extensive. The items at the very front were smokeless charcoal, used for barbecuing, as my favorite foods were all kinds of skewers, making smokeless charcoal indispensable. 1 box could burn for 3 hours, and I had bought a total of 50 boxes. Thankfully, we have an electric pushcart, so my mom was able to stack up boxes, 10 at a time, and move them to the storage room on the first floor. The storage room was already fitted with shelves, and all we needed to do for the charcoal was to place it in the coolest part of the room to keep it dry. It doesn't spoil anyway. Originally, the house had a cellar that could be used for storing rice, flour, and cooking oils, but my mom had it converted into a cold storage. As a result, foods like rice, flour, oils, and canned goods that can be stored at room temperature were stacked in a storage room on the second floor. The walls there are not only insulated but also equipped with cooling panels, combined with an air conditioning unit. Even if the air conditioning fails later on, the room can still maintain a temperature around 28 degrees Celsius to prevent the food from spoiling. Since it's just my mom and me, I buy rice in 10-pound bags. My mom asked for 50 bags, which is just 500 pounds in total, feeling it might not be enough. I ordered an extra 50 bags, making it 100 pounds of rice. We also ordered 100 pounds each of high gluten flour, low gluten flour, and glutinous rice flour, as well as corn oil, peanut oil, and soybean oil in 2-liter containers. We got 100 bottles of sesame oil as well. If we don't use it all, we'll just donate it. In total, it took my mom and me from 2 to past 6 o'clock to unload just half of the 2010 truckload before we were too exhausted and went back inside to have dinner. I couldn't be bothered to cook. I just took a ready-made pizza from the fridge, heated it in the microwave, and opened 2 bottles of soda. It was a simple yet satisfying meal. "Nora, don't you think something's missing in this house?" my mom asked, lounging on the sofa while I served her food and drinks. Then it struck her. "Nora, we need a home theater system." I had to agree. After all, how could we not enjoy watching dramas or singing karaoke at home? "Mom, how about we finish unloading tomorrow, then have some fun in the province? When we come back the day after, we can set up a home theater system," I suggested. "Deal." My mom and I were on the same page. We began planning what to eat and what to do in the province the next day. Oh, and we needed to check for any oversight. We reviewed today's inventory. Rice, flour, oils, and all kinds of canned goods were there, as were medicines and coal, even daily necessities like toothbrushes, toothpaste, sanitary pads, and also vegetable seeds and fertilizer were all accounted for. Oh right, we hadn't bought fish seedlings yet. We had to remember to do that when we got back. "Nora, if you want to grow vegetables indoors, we'll need to get some plant lights, or the plants will turn yellow and won't grow properly." My mom noted. She had experience, so it was a must. We also needed to buy fruits. We had a wine cellar where some fruits like lemons, apples, and pears could be stored for a long time. We would need to make a trip to the fruit market when we got back. "Mom, are you sure the solar panels won't burst under high temperatures?" I had checked online. Some people said that solar panels would generate less electricity above 50 degrees Celsius and that higher temperatures could damage the circuits. My mom replied. I asked the seller, and he said these are the most advanced materials that can withstand hundreds of degrees of heat, so even if temperatures reach 100 degrees Celsius and everyone else is gone, the solar panels won't be damaged. But I'm still worried he might be lying. So I didn't just install solar panels on the roof, I also laid them under the fruit trees outside. If the ones on the roof fail, those under the trees should still work. Plus, our storage room on the third floor has a large storage capacity. The technician told me that if fully charged, just the air conditioning alone could last us half a year. Worst case, we won't turn on the air conditioning for the whole house. We could just huddle in the wine cellar and maintain a normal temperature outside, which should last us for a year and a half. I still have a concern. Isn't it more likely for the battery room? built on the third floor to overheat and explode. There's no other way. Our house doesn't have a basement, otherwise, having it in the basement would have been ideal. However, I've had it insulated with thick thermal materials, and the best liquid cooling plates were used. The technician assured me that even if it gets extremely hot outside, it won't be a problem here. All right, it should be fine. I checked it myself. The liquid cooling materials are indeed effective, even though the air conditioning is always on. It's noticeably cooler in there than outside. Still, I can't help but worry. Mom, let's bring a diesel generator when we come back tomorrow, just for extra security. Okay, my mom didn't object but asked, where do you plan to store the diesel? I opened my mouth and fell silent. Right, diesel isn't like tap water. It's a hazardous material and not so easy to store. Plus, I checked online, and 1 liter of diesel generates only 3 kilowatt-hours of electricity. Considering our air conditioning alone consumes upwards of 30 kilowatt-hours a day, how much diesel would we need to store? Relying on solar panels seems more reliable, and my mom has also considered our electricity usage, so the solar panels should suffice. The wiring is buried deep underground. I guess I'm just overly anxious, but then again, who wouldn't be cautious in a rebirth? Last night, I hardly slept at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I envisioned terrifying scenes of being engulfed in flames. It's really left a psychological mark. My father is still frantically searching for us. I believe you won't find us because only my mom and I know about this new piece of land we bought. The next morning, my mom made dumplings that smelled so delicious. My mouth was watering. She hardly slept either. Probably got up before dawn to start making them. The dumpling wrappers were chewy, something you can't compare with frozen dumplings. Nora, I just received a voice message from a friend. Your dad went to our dance troupe and asked all my friends if they knew where I was. My mom laughed, though I couldn't tell if it was out of anger or something else. Her tone was sarcastic but with a tinge of melancholy. Your dad never looked for me before, and now that he finally does, it's to kill me. Mom, don't be sad. They'll get their comeuppance soon. I believe that given their selfishness, in times of food scarcity, they will definitely turn on each other. We'll just sit back and watch the drama unfold. It's the 8th day before the heat wave hits. We finally managed to store the last batch of goods in the storage room by midday, and I was so tired I could barely straighten my back. My mom was lying motionless on the sofa. I added a massage chair to our shopping list. We must bring it back tomorrow. After unloading, a good massage will be incredibly soothing. After lunch, we rested for a while before setting off for the province. During the 4-hour drive, my mom lay on a mattress behind the driver's seat, chatting with me intermittently. She reminisced about how diligently my dad pursued her back in the day, utterly devoted and promising to treat her well for a lifetime. She was moved and thought marrying him would lead to happiness. At the time, my grandfather didn't agree, saying that marriages need to be between equals to last, but he couldn't persuade my mom and had to agree to their marriage. However, my grandfather still had one condition. He forced my dad to sign a prenuptial agreement and later made my mom write a will, naming me as their heir. My grandfather thought since I was my dad's biological daughter, leaving the property to me was the safest. Little did he know, despite all his calculations, he couldn't foresee that my dad was more venomous than a tiger. Even I am not spared. Thinking about how I was burned in my previous life and how they intend to repeat the same this life, I'm filled with rage. If I could, I would pour all the gasoline of my last life over them and throw a lit match at them. Ding. The private detective sent me a message. There's someone with your dad's mistress. I immediately pulled the car over to the side of the road, and my mom leaned over. What happened? My dad is being cheated on. As I responded to my mom, I messaged the detective, send me the video. Almost immediately, the video came through. In a corner of the park, the mistress was wrapped up in the arms of a man, kissing and caressing. This is happening in a public park. TSK. I watched intently, and suddenly it hit me. Could that boy not even be my dad's child? At this moment, I felt like a wild animal in a field, eager to bite into each and every melon. The detective was very diligent. Without me even asking, he said, I've already sent the mistress's child and your father's DNA samples for a paternity test. We should know by tomorrow if this child is your father's biological son. Great. I transferred 50,000 yuan to him and reminded him, the weather's off lately, stock up on some food. That's all I could remind him. My mom had already informed the relevant authorities, and they said they would report it. They advised us not to spread the word to avoid panic. It seems quiet for now, but I believe the government must be preparing something. So, the priority for us now is to take care of ourselves. I first went to the electronics store, bought a massage chair to avoid forgetting later, along with home theater equipment, making sure nothing was missed. Then I headed to the wholesale market with a long shopping list, mainly focusing on groceries like chips, biscuits, various nuts, all to be bought in small bags and moved by the box. I also stocked up on various beverages and ingredients like tapioca and jelly. My mom also specifically asked me to buy 10 boxes of mooncakes. mentioning that they are high in sugar and calories but keep well and could be life-saving in an emergency. I was amazed. Aren't canned goods and military rations designed to last for over 20 years, but no matter, if mom says to buy, I buy. I had already bought 100 kilograms of sugar, but thinking about how much we use, I decided to buy another 100 kilograms for safety. Then my mom and I went straight to the slaughterhouse, ordered 10 pigs, 10 sheep, and 3 cows. They even had deer meat for sale, so I ordered 2 on the spot. They would deliver the goods the next morning, and we'd take them straight home to store in the cold room. By the time we finished, it was past 8 in the evening. My mom and I were starving, so we went to that super 5-star hotel again and ordered a full Manchuan Imperial feast, eating till we nearly vomited. After a hearty meal, it was nearly 10 o'clock, we went straight to the SPA center, and I fell asleep there, only to be woken up by my mom around 12:30. Nora, let's go back to the room to sleep, okay? I rubbed my eyes and got dressed. After all, it would be a waste not to sleep in a presidential suite. The alarm clock on my phone woke us up at 5 in the morning. With 7 days left until the high-temperature apocalypse, my mom and I drove the truck to the fruit wholesale market and handed the list to the owner to load up 50 boxes of lemons, each weighing 38 pounds, 50 boxes of apples, each 52 pounds, 50 boxes of mangoes, each 48 pounds. I noticed that yellow-skinned fruits were on sale, and in this season, one certainly shouldn't miss the Old Salt preserved yellow-skinned fruits, 1 query, and they were $7 per gene, with each box weighing 50 gene. I immediately ordered 50 boxes. These items spoil easily, but I've figured out a way to preserve them. After washing, I can mash them up and freeze them in ice cube trays. When I want to use them, I just toss them into water. This method allows them to be preserved for a long time, probably up to a year and a half. There were also grapes, durians, watermelons, and more. The list was missing many items, so I just had the workers carry them on the spot. After finishing, I passed by a home goods store. I parked and had them load 3 boxes of ice cube trays into my car. Any fruit that couldn't be stored fresh would be mashed and frozen into cubes for convenience and longevity. At around 7:10 a.m., we arrived at the wholesale vegetable market. Onions, garlic, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and other durable vegetables were all boxed up. Then, we headed to the nearby frozen food market for items like corn skewers, lamb skewers, beef skewers, sausages, meatballs, and more. Anything that could be grilled or fried, all boxed up. There were also pre-cooked dishes like steamed buns, baozi, tea house chicken feet, steamed fish, and more. Regardless of health or hygiene concerns, we loaded everything up. Our home freezer was big enough. We arrived at the slaughterhouse after 8 a.m. The fresh meat ordered the previous night was already segmented and packed. The workers loaded it up. Immediately, I asked the owner, and he assured me that the foam boxes they used included ice packs to keep the meat fresh. As long as it got into the freezer on the same day, there would be no risk of spoilage. This packaging method was experienced by many buyers from various cities and counties. By nearly 9 a.m., we headed home. On the way, I bought 3 pots of mint and my mom picked up 2 pots of roses, saying we needed to make roses with thorns. I had to agree. It was time to make those who wronged bleed. We reached home around 2 p.m. We collapsed on the bed for over half an hour before we started unloading. Simply unloading the fresh meat wasn't enough. It also had to be cut into smaller pieces. Since it was just my mom and me, each bag weighing around 1.5 gene was sufficient. My mom and I moved all the meat to the kitchen, then fired up the segmentation process. Pork, lamb, deer meat, and the toughest, beef. The bones were a real challenge. Luckily, the previous owner had left a cutting machine, otherwise, it would have been impossible. Dinner was just thrown together, and we worked until midnight, not stopping until the last piece of beef was in the freezer. Then, my mom and I collapsed on the bed, too exhausted to move. For the time being, there was no rush. Perishable fruits were cleaned, mashed, and poured into ice trays before being placed in the freezer. Non-perishable items were just stored in the refrigeration room. Thankfully, the freezer was large enough. We arranged several rows of shelves, labeled for pork, lamb, beef, deer meat, pre-cooked dishes, and an ice cube area especially for storing fruits that needed freezing and items like popsicles. Everything was conveniently accessible and ready to use. High temperatures marked the 5th last day of a potential doomsday. A private detective sent me the paternity test results. As expected, my dad was not the biological father of the mistress's child. Interestingly, the child also wasn't related to the man from the park. However, the real father's identity wasn't important. Just as long as the child wasn't my dad's, I settled the full fee with the detective and gave him an extra large bonus, letting him know his job was done. I had obtained the information I wanted. My mom asked if I was going to tell my dad. I said, of course, I would tell him, but not now. We would wait until they were desperate, then deliver the final blow to my dad. That's your dad's problem, plus having a second child wasn't really necessary, so I didn't press the matter. My mom said, then burst into laughter. I really want to see your dad's reaction when he finds out the truth. Nora, should I just sue him for divorce in court? No way, being a business person. Of course, I think about maximizing benefits. I've already had our legal team buy the highest possible accident insurance for dad and his group. My mom didn't catch on immediately. She was pampered by my grandfather from a young age. A delicate flower raised in a greenhouse. Unlike me, I was like a new account started by my grandfather after the old one was depleted, raised from childhood to be his heir, with a heart so tough, as long as it's about making money, and it's legal, I'm all in. On the penultimate day of the extreme heat apocalypse, we're not planning to go out tomorrow. My mom and I drove to the market and bought lots of fish to store in the cold storage. We also bought tilapia fingerlings and crayfish. My mom insisted on buying a few peacock fish with big bellies too. Keep as pets for amusement, of course. I indulged her. Who else would I spoil if not my own mother? We also ate local specialties like wild vegetables and free-range chicken. There was even a dog meat hot pot on the menu, but neither my mom nor I dared to order it. After a day of fun, we came home in the evening. My mom and I fought over the massage chair. I regretted not buying two, that way we wouldn't have to compete for one and could enjoy it together. The next morning, the outside was shrouded in fog. I glanced at my phone, and the temperature displayed was a staggering 35 degrees Celsius, even though the highest temperature yesterday was only 34 degrees. My dad and his group hadn't given up on finding us. Through the security cameras, I saw they had tried every method they could think of, and contacted everyone they could, but still had no news about us. They even got a bunch of new SIM cards, switching them one by one to call me and my mom, but our phones were set to block strangers. So changing even hundreds of SIM cards wouldn't let their calls through. In the afternoon, I saw a government announcement shared by my assistant on social media. It stated that the extreme heat would continue, urging citizens in need to quickly proceed to the nearest underground parking or bomb shelters where emergency stations had been set up by the government to ensure the safety of the citizens. But my dad and his party didn't take it seriously. Clearly, they were squatting in our villa. The mistress hadn't left for days, sleeping directly in the master bedroom, which infuriated my mom. If it weren't for the fact that my grandfather had bought the villa, she would have sold it. On the day the extreme heat officially arrived, we were indoors with the air conditioning on and didn't feel much, but outside the temperature had already soared to 52 degrees Celsius. In my previous life, that was exactly when my dad and his group had reached the summer resort. My mom and I were nestled on the couch, binge-watching TV shows and munching on popsicles when they burst through the door, hurling insults. They called my mom a useless hen and me a loss-making, ungrateful creature, even splashing gasoline on us. You can imagine, after our deaths, they just holed up in the holiday resort to survive the heat. Now, since they haven't found my mom and me, they couldn't run off to the summer resort like before and were trapped at home. Our home in the south was one of the places where the temperature rose the fastest. By noon here, it was still hovering around 53 or 54 degrees, and our central air conditioning hadn't stopped. Their place had already exceeded 60 degrees and was still climbing. I opened the surveillance feed and saw that they had all squeezed into the wine cellar, frantically trying to call someone to fix the air conditioning. I couldn't help but laugh. What were they thinking? No one, no matter how desperate for money, would come out to repair air conditioning in 60-degree heat. It's impossible to fix it. Well, right, they must have entered the wine cellar at night, enjoying the air conditioning, completely oblivious to how hot it was outside. I saw through some live streams online that some asphalt roads had even melted, suggesting that it's no longer suitable for humans to survive outdoors. The government's silent preparations can no longer be hidden. People online are fervently sharing videos of workers dressed like astronauts, braving the scorching sun and walking down deserted streets, resembling people from the future. I heard that their suits, originally designed for moon landings, have a built-in temperature control system that can withstand temperatures up to 100 degrees Celsius. Because of them, the internet is still up, and I can still see through the surveillance how my dad and his company curse the weather, the air conditioning repair, and then curse at my mom and me, saying we'd be better off dead outside so they wouldn't have to lift a finger. How can they have everything their way? I pulled out my phone and added my dad back. The moment he accepted, I sent him a video of his mistress hugging someone in the park. My dad opened it immediately, and the volume on his phone was quite loud, echoing through the wine cellar. What is this? The mistress quickly snatched my dad's phone, her face turning pale. This is a misunderstanding. I never did such a thing. Whether she did it or not isn't important. I also sent over a paternity test report, and then left a voice message. Mom said that they were planning to have a second child, but she never got pregnant, so they went for a checkup. The doctor said she was fine. The problem was with my dad. He's the one who can't produce. After saying that, I blocked him. That felt great. My dad wanted to know what was going on, but all he got was a big exclamation mark. The wine cellar, which was originally full of maternal and filial piety, united in cursing me and my mom. now became incredibly awkward, especially since the mistress's moans could be heard every time my grandparents played the video. So disgusting yet so moving. Bob, believe me, this woman isn't me. Oh right, it must be a deepfake. Today's technology makes fakes look just like real. That loser just can't stand seeing our happy marriage and used this to disgust us, the mistress tried to explain, while my dad's face darkened. Let me see your phone. What? You don't trust me, the mistress screamed and stepped back, clutching her phone tightly, clearly guilty and afraid to let my dad see. Just hand over the phone. Why all the fuss? My dad got angry. He wasn't stupid. The mistress's behavior said it all. Or maybe he had already had his suspicions. In any case, he lunged to snatch the phone. The mistress struggled and kicked at my dad. My grandma, seeing this, couldn't bear it and also lunged forward, grabbing the mistress's hair and scratching her face. Can you all just stop? I'm trying to play a game here. My grandma's beloved grandson was sitting nearby playing on his phone. Not even looking up once, cursing under his breath, my grandpa, trembling with anger, walked over and slapped his grandson hard across the face. You little bastard, with a loud smack and a painful sting. The three brawlers froze for a moment, and the grandson too, stunned. Then he reacted. How dare you hit me, you old fool. He suddenly sprang up, charging headfirst into his once beloved grandfather's chest. Bang, Dad, old man. Grandpa fell to the ground, and Dad and Grandma rushed over. Crying out in alarm, unfazed and still angry, the grandson kicked his grandfather viciously in the thigh, shouting, Old man, you're dead now. How dare you hit your grandfather, you beast. Dad got up and slapped his beloved son hard. Unexpectedly, his son fought back, punching and biting, shouting, I'll let you hit me, you villain, I'll kill you. Despite being only 8 years old, the boy was well-nourished and strong, standing at 150 centimeters tall, with Dad now nearly 50 and caught off guard. He was quickly overpowered and pinned to the ground. Grandma, crying, threw herself over him to protect him, pleading, stop hitting, stop. Even she, his beloved grandmother, received several punches before the grandson stopped, threatening, if you dare hit me again, I'll kill you all. Throughout this ordeal, the other woman watched with cold indifference, even smirking at the scene. It was clear, like mother, like son, they were all cut from the same cloth. Old man, after protecting Dad, Grandma hurried to check on Grandpa, only to burst into tears when she found him unresponsive. His eyes rolled back. This was serious trouble. Dad, barely conscious himself, tried to call an ambulance, but the line was continuously busy. It was a common issue in emergency situations. Even if you get through, there might not be an ambulance available. Mom, we'll take him ourselves. After several unsuccessful attempts to reach emergency services, Dad decided to carry Grandpa out himself, but as soon as they opened the door to the wine cellar, a blast of heat hit them. It was just the basement. By the time Dad and Grandma reached the top of the stairs, they were drenched in sweat. Grandma, in her 70s, was gasping for breath and could barely walk in the extreme heat, a sure risk for heat stroke. Mom, you stay back. I'll take Dad to the hospital myself. Dad, seeing Grandma struggling, didn't wait for her and rushed out with Grandpa. Grandma tried to follow but couldn't keep up, and slowly made her way back. At the cellar door, she tried to push it open but couldn't. She knocked on the door, pleading, May, please let me in. There was no response from inside. Through the surveillance, I could see the other woman and her plump son blocking the door, clearly unwilling to let Grandma in. Grandma continued to knock, begging, please let me in. It's too hot. I can barely breathe. The temperature outside had soared past 62 degrees Celsius, despite the basement being cooler. Grandma's profuse sweating and increasing weakness indicated that it wasn't cool enough, but the other woman still wouldn't open the door. Eventually, Grandma's strength faded, and she slumped to the ground, unable to even call out anymore. Dad hadn't returned yet. All I could do was watch the situation at home through the surveillance feed. The other woman and her son were comfortably hiding in the cellar, munching on chips and scrolling through their phones. How could I let them be so comfortable? I downloaded the surveillance footage of Grandma knocking and collapsing, as well as the other woman and her son laughing and snacking, and sent it directly to Dad. Time for dinner. My mom called me over. The first day